When we hear the words electric vehicle, many people immediately imagine a smooth, silent, peaceful, and premium way of traveling without gasoline and with almost no impact on the environment. But is an electric vehicle really as clean, economical, and trouble-free as we often hear? That is the question we are going to explore in detail because there are several misunderstandings surrounding electric cars. This does not mean electric vehicles are bad or that nobody should buy them. The main point is to understand what actually happens behind the scenes. An electric vehicle does not produce exhaust smoke while driving, but that does not automatically mean there are no emissions involved. To understand this properly, we first need to look at how electric vehicles get their energy and what is involved in producing their batteries. A gasoline or diesel vehicle burns fuel and releases carbon dioxide directly from its exhaust. Electric vehicles do not burn gasoline or diesel while driving. However, the energy stored in their batteries has to come from somewhere, and the battery itself also has to be manufactured. Carbon dioxide is one of the major gases released when fossil fuels such as gasoline, diesel, and coal are used. So, if we want to compare gasoline vehicles and electric vehicles, we need to look beyond what comes out of the exhaust and consider the complete process. Let us take a gasoline car as an example. Suppose the car gets about 35 miles per gallon and travels 10,000 miles every year. That means it would consume approximately 286 gallons of gasoline in 1 year. If we look at a 10-year period, the amount of fuel consumed becomes significant. Burning 1 gallon of gasoline produces roughly 19.6 pounds of carbon dioxide. There are also emissions involved in producing and transporting the gasoline itself. Using this example, the total direct and fuel supply emissions over 10 years can be substantial. Now let us look at an electric vehicle. An electric vehicle does not have gasoline as its fuel, but it has a battery as its energy source. Consider an electric car with a 59 kilowatt-hour battery and an approximate range of 311 miles per charge. The battery has to be manufactured before the car can even begin operating, and manufacturing a lithium-ion battery can involve considerable carbon emissions. The exact figure is not fixed because battery chemistry, manufacturing methods, and production locations can all affect the result. The original calculation uses estimates from different sources and treats them as approximate. Based on those estimates, producing a 59 kilowatt-hour battery could be associated with around 10,325 kilograms, or about 22,763 pounds of carbon dioxide. So before the vehicle has traveled its first mile, a large amount of carbon emissions may already have been associated with producing its battery. But battery manufacturing is only one part of the calculation. The battery also needs to be charged. If a 59 kilowatt-hour battery is charged fully, it consumes roughly 59 kilowatt-hours of electricity. And with charging losses, the actual electricity taken can be around 60 kilowatt-hours. If the vehicle travels about 311 miles on one full charge and is driven 10,000 miles every year, it would require roughly 32 full charges annually. That works out to around 1,930 kilowatt-hours of electricity each year, or approximately 19,300 kilowatt-hours over 10 years. The next question is where that electricity comes from. Electricity is not automatically generated from solar and wind. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, fossil fuels accounted for about 58% of U.S. utility-scale electricity generation in 2025, with natural gas making up about 41% and coal about 17%. At the same time, renewable sources accounted for about 24%, so the American grid is a mixture rather than a completely fossil fuel or completely renewable system. This means charging an EV can still be associated with emissions, although the amount varies significantly depending on where you live and how your electricity is generated. Someone charging from a cleaner grid or from their own solar panels can have a very different environmental result from someone charging in a region that depends more heavily on fossil fuel generation. There is another important point to consider. The battery may eventually need replacement. The environmental calculation therefore becomes more complicated when battery replacement is included. Recycling can allow valuable materials to be recovered, but recycling and disposal also have challenges. Now let us shift our focus from environmental impact to cost. Electric vehicles can have a higher purchase price than comparable gasoline vehicles. although the difference varies greatly between models. Imagine a gasoline car costing $30,000 and a comparable EV costing $40,000. That means the EV requires an additional $10,000 upfront. The running cost can be lower. The U.S. Energy Information Administration reported that regular gasoline averaged about $3.10 per gallon in 2025. At 35 miles per gallon, driving 10,000 miles per year would use about 286 gallons, costing roughly $886 annually at that gasoline price. Over 10 years, that would be around $8,860 before considering changes in gasoline prices. That difference can vary significantly from one state to another. For electricity, the EIA reported a 2025 U.S. residential average of about 17.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Using our earlier estimate of approximately 19,300 kilowatt hours over 10 years, charging would cost around $3,339 at that average rate. Real-world costs can be much higher or lower depending on your state, utility charging location, and whether you use home charging or public fast chargers. So, in this simplified example, the EV could save thousands of dollars in energy costs over 10 years. It can also require less routine maintenance because there is no conventional gasoline engine, oil changes, or many of the mechanical systems found in internal combustion vehicles. But that does not mean every EV repair will automatically be cheap. Electric vehicles still contain many electrical and electronic components, including control units, circuit boards, sensors, and other systems. They also have suspension, tires, brakes, and other parts that can wear out. The absence of an engine does not mean every possible repair becomes free. Depending on the vehicle and the component that fails, repair costs can still matter. Resale value is another important concern. The condition of an electric vehicle's battery can influence how much value the vehicle retains. If a future buyer expects an expensive battery replacement, that expectation can affect the used vehicle's price. Battery technology is improving, warranties vary between manufacturers, and actual battery life depends on factors such as climate, charging habits, and usage. Therefore, buyers should examine the specific battery warranty instead of assuming every EV will have the same ownership experience. Someone who already owns several cars and wants to experience an electric vehicle may have a different risk calculation. If charging is convenient, the vehicle meets the required range, and the running costs are satisfactory, an EV can make a lot of sense. But someone buying a single car using a loan and monthly payments may need to think more carefully. The purchase price, charging availability, battery warranty, potential battery replacement, maintenance, resale value, and actual driving requirements all become important. This is why the question is not simply whether electric vehicles are good or bad. The better question is whether an EV suits your budget, driving pattern, charging access, climate, vehicle needs, and expectations about the future. Ultimately, the message is not that electric vehicles are automatically bad. The message is that buying one should not be based only on the idea that it produces no emissions and costs almost nothing to run. An electric vehicle has a battery that requires resources and manufacturing energy, charging requires electricity, and long-term ownership involves questions about maintenance, battery life, and resale value. The best decision depends on how the vehicle will actually be used. If charging is convenient, the vehicle provides enough range, and the owner understands the long-term costs, an electric vehicle can be an excellent choice. But if it is going to be the only car, especially for a buyer with a tight budget, it is worth looking carefully at the complete ownership picture before making the decision.